What's going on, guys? Today I felt incredibly inspired to make this video in disagreement with the latest Rick Beato video that just came out. Actually, he posts so much at this point, by the time I put this out, he probably will have already released like 2 more videos. So, I wanted to talk about a couple things though that actually made me very critically think about this subject. So Rick Beato released a video called "This is the greatest guitar solo ever, period," or something to that effect. And basically in the video, he plays, what he believes would have been, in his mind, the greatest guitar solo ever written. And then basically says, but actually it's this thing by Joe Pass. And he proceeds to play through a fair amount of it. And honestly, to his credit, he did a pretty good job of playing through a good amount of this Joe Pass record that he was showcasing. But it made me really think about this entire thing, because I was like, wow, that's a pretty bold statement to say this is the greatest guitar solo ever. I mean, there's a lot of solos I've heard in my life where I've thought this might be the greatest solo ever. In fact, to give an honorable mention, probably my actual favorite, like, full-length just guitar solo in a song that isn't like the whole song being a solo is probably "Hold On to Love" by Jason Becker. I think that might be my favorite guitar solo ever written, actually. Hey guys, real quick, if you want lessons with me and want to learn how to play like this, learn how to play like Yngwie, learn how to unlock the fretboard of your guitar, email me below for a one-on-one private instruction from me, and if it's a good fit, I'll get back to you and we can work together. My email is in the link in the description and the pinned comment. Now back to the video. Love David Gilmour too, but I think his ratings on the solo department are a little bit overrated, right? Like, everyone's gonna tell me "Comfortably Numb," but actually my favorite record is "Shine On You Crazy Diamond." So for me, I just have a different palette with that kind of stuff. I really had to think about this because I watched the video and I'm like, man, that is like the weirdest pick I've ever seen in my life, to pick Joe Pass as the greatest solo. Now obviously Joe Pass is one of the greatest players ever to walk the face of planet Earth. I'm not gonna take that away from the guy. But it took me into a deeper thought with, what do I actually think of when I think of the electric guitar? Now, Rick Beato played this on a hollow body electric, I think is what I saw in the video, which obviously is what Joe Pass would have used. But I thought to myself, this is not what I would think of if I think of the electric guitar. What do I actually think is the coolest solo that actually showcases the electric guitar in its fullest potential, to where you actually think that is what an electric guitar sounds like when you hear it? And this is a pretty broad statement, but I came to the most obvious conclusion for myself. To take you into this story, when I was a young kid, my dad heavily influenced my music tastes, like a lot. Still probably to this day, honestly. That's how much of an influence it was. Now, my dad is not a musician. That's the irony of the whole thing. He's just a very intellectual music lover. He should be a music critic himself, honestly. But he, got me in the Van Halen thing, the Pink Floyd thing. And I remember when I was a kid, one day he came to me and I was obsessed with Eddie Van Halen, like everything I listened to was Eddie Van Halen or nothing, Eruption. I was obsessed with the Beat It solo. I wanted to be like Eddie Van Halen. Honestly, it would have been my dream as a kid to just replace Eddie in his own band. And at this point, I had been playing guitar maybe for like 1 or 2 years. I think I was like 9 years old or something like that. It wasn't very long. And my dad, this is back when we had iPods. I don't know. Does that make me look young or old at this point? I don't even know. This would have been like 2008 or something. I had like the iPod, the iPod Shuffle or whatever it was. And so basically my dad went in and added his music into my iPod. He's like, I want you to listen to this. I think he played it in the car, actually. And it was actually a really deep cut from Yngwie. I think this record had come out at the same year from the album Perpetual Flame. And the song was called Caprice di Diablo. And I heard it, and it was instantaneously wiping the floor with everything I'd heard even possible from this instrument. I mean, I literally never heard anyone play like that. Now, obviously, there's going to be older people that were around for when Yngwie actually came out, they were like, you should have seen it in 1983. Well, yeah, obviously. But even for a kid my age at the time, it was completely mind-blowing. I mean, literally, I had never heard anything like this, and it was a life-changing moment. I mean, it made me think I was not shit, because I think I kind of developed an ego at this time also a little bit, I was like pretty good at guitar for my age, and adults definitely let me know that, and it kind of went to my head when I was a kid. But then when I heard Yngwie, I was like, man, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to do that. Obviously at that point I became obsessed with Yngwie, and then I went and listened. I think the first 3 records I listened to were Trilogy Suite, the Caprice di Diablo, and the Far Beyond the Sun, and Black Star. I think those are the first 4 Yngwie, maybe Evil Eye too, were like the first 4 or 5 Yngwie cuts I heard like the same day. That completely blew my mind, And obviously this is a time where we don't have you don't go buy the record, at that time. You're just going through singles on iTunes, adding them to your iPod and all this crap. But completely blew my mind, okay? So over the years, I kind of wrote this off, I would say, as unattainable. But the more I listened to it, even in my older years, and then of course the better you get at the instrument, I finally decided, after I'd been playing for about 13, 14 years, that I'd finally decide to learn Yngwie, which kind of took me on the journey that I've been on the last probably 5 or 6 years with it. It's a really interesting thing, because when I thought of Rick Beato's thing, I'm like, nah, man, this is a really whack pick. No offense to Joe Pass or Rick Beato. I actually like a lot of Rick Beato's videos, but I don't know, sometimes he gives me a take and I'm like, man, that is just not it. So I thought about Rick Beato's proposed title, This is the Greatest Solo Ever. I was listening in my car while thinking about this, and I listened to 2 things that I thought classified the greatest solo ever. Now, the first one is the riff that you hear at about the minute marker 5:11 on the Trilogy Suite. And the lick sounds like this. And, the reason obviously I'm going to play these licks for you is, for one, Rick Beato played the licks in his video about Joe Pass, so I think it's only fair that I also attempt the hardest stuff ever to show you. Also, I'm going to get heavily copyrighted if I play Yngwie's music on my channel. So that lick, the first time I ever heard that lick, it comes out of the Trilogy Suite. It's 3 parts. You have the first part, which is super sick, that I played in the beginning of the video, and then you get kind of the acoustic section, and then the last bridge section with the cool riffs in it. It goes back to electric guitar, and then you just get this halt with the whole band, and Yngwie goes into that lick. And the lick only lasts about 3 seconds total, if that, and literally, it is the sound of electric guitar, in my opinion. The first time I ever heard that lick, I thought a guitar could not sound any more badass than that lick in its 3-second form. This lick has stuck with me from the time where I was 8 or 9 years old, first hearing Yngwie, all the way until now. Now, the lick is hard to play. It is a very typical Yngwie run in the sense of the scale he uses in the 4 and 3 note cadences. Super typical Yngwie lick, but it's really the speed that he's playing it at, which is nearly pretty much 30-second notes, probably a couple grace notes. But really, if you call it spade to spade, it's very hard to notate this thing. I mean, Yngwie is a note crammer, and this led me down an entire rabbit hole in itself with the note cramming stuff, that I figured out why it cannot be replicated so easy amongst other guitar players. Now, I struggle with this for years and years on end with Yngwie's stuff, where every time I'd learn one of his licks, I was trying to make it sound so cohesive and even. I would analyze the groupings that it was in, the amount of notes that were played on it, and I would try to replicate it, and it would sound pretty robotic, maybe something. And then when I play that, I think, this does not sound like Yngwie at all. And a couple things hit me one day, only not too long ago actually, as I was pondering this entire idea. And I basically stopped thinking about what I was playing. It was kind of weird. I just woke up one day after consciously trying to stop thinking about what I was doing, and then I got in my own head about a lot of stuff, even more so. And then one day I just woke up, grabbed the guitar, and started playing. Instantaneously, as I was trying to play, all of these licks that I had been working on for years just kind of came out of me. So I watched Yngwie play this lick live, and I watched him bail out of his own lick, actually, on one of his live performances, where he just pretty much does a slide, holds it out, and bails into the rest of the song. And I thought, man, a true improvisational player right there. All of these licks are only achieved because he is one of the few guitar players that truly is actually feeling what he's playing live. And I don't just say that to, shill for Yngwie or anything like that, because Yngwie gets a lot of shade, unfortunately, for no reason, in my opinion, actually. No good reason, anyways. I feel like the shade really comes from people that I don't know why they don't like his playing, honestly. But the thing I took away from this entire thing is that this guy literally improvs everything that he plays, meaning he is not thinking about these licks, which is why they sound so good. The other thing I noticed when I was listening to the Japanese Philharmonic live performance from him is he actually plays a lot of kind of bad notes, but they're only really bad if you think of them as trying to be perfect. That's only the time they sound bad. Otherwise, to me, Yngwie just sounds like a blues guitar player just playing more notes than your average blues guy. It's the beauty of the imperfection that makes it perfect. Upon pondering the subject, I had to think to myself, this 3-second guitar lick probably is the sickest lick I've ever heard in my entire life. If I was going to show somebody who'd never heard a guitar before, specifically the electric guitar, what would be the first thing that I would show them that says, this instrument sounds like this, and this is what you can do with it? I would probably show them that 3-second Yngwie Malmsteen lick from the Trilogy Suite. Now, the only other solo that I felt like topped this one is one that was actually never technically on a record. And this would have been the intro to the Trilogy Suite that Yngwie plays at the Japanese Philharmonic in Tokyo. The first time I ever heard this performance, it changed my entire life and the way that I viewed all music in general. The way that Yngwie walks on stage is very nonchalant, meaning, he's comfortable with obviously his own music that he's written in a way. From the first note that he plays, the sustain of the note, and into the first couple of licks, it's what you would expect him to do. Meaning, it's the Trilogy Suite. He's about to go in and play the really fast intro part, probably a different way than he played it on the record, because again, he's an improvisational player, right? He has no need to play you the record live. That would actually, in a sense, be a disservice to the listener to go see Yngwie Malmsteen and see him play the record. He didn't play the record when he was playing the record. It was off the dome. So when he walks on stage and plays the first note, it's pretty cool. But then right as he gets to the third, fast harmonic minor intro to this lick, he goes into just straight improv, stretches it out longer than normal, and literally plays the sickest guitar lick I've ever heard in my entire life. The first time I ever heard this lick, as embarrassing as it is to maybe share this with the YouTube audience, I did shed a tear for Yngwie Malmsteen. This lick was so disgusting, yet beautiful at the same time, that I could not help but shed a tear for this guitar lick. Truth be told, I've shed a tear for actually quite a few Yngwie Malmsteen guitar solos. Maybe that sounds weird to people, because I feel like people usually think of shedding a tear to like this beautiful, slow thing like David Gilmour, or maybe even Steve Vai or something like that, you know. But no, I've honestly shed a tear for quite a few Yngwie licks in my listening life. And this would have been definitely one of those moments. From the moment that I heard this opening, I could not fathom that this was the first thing this man played walking on stage. He didn't even try to save it, to build up to it, you know, to lead you on for a little bit so that way you could hear the good stuff. He just gave you the best stuff from the beginning, which I feel like in a sense is too much for the human brain to even process in one go like that. I had to go back and listen to it again and again and again and again. And to this day, I think it has become my favorite Yngwie guitar lick. In fact, it's become just my favorite guitar lick ever written. That one guitar lick made me aspire to want to play everything sounding that good for the rest of my life. Because the fact that even Yngwie himself doesn't play it perfect, he plays it kind of sloppy in his own way in a sense, that's what made it perfect. If I was going to present the electric guitar to somebody, being a student of the craft, I would have to say that I believe that this is the greatest guitar solo I've ever heard in my life. Leave it in the comments below if you agree or disagree. If you want to learn how to play like this, email me. If you'd like to become one of my private students, one-on-one instruction with me, email me below. The link's in the description as well as the pinned comment. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I will see you on the next one.